starting now also, just so that you know.
All right, my name is Tando,
Okay.
and I am a writer, and I am also in media.
Okay.
And I joined School of Thought just to learn more about design, and yeah, to see if I can expand to other fields as much as the business side is concerned. So yeah, I'm looking forward to today.
All right, nice to meet you, Tando. I hope you learn a thing or two from today's class. Who's next?
No.
Hi everyone.
Okay. Hello.
My name is Peggy, and I'm a graphic designer. I'm a school of thought because I want to learn more about the tech side of design, UX and UI.
All right. Nice to meet you, Peggy.
Thank you.
Hi everyone.
Okay. Hi, Samantha again.
Again, for the people that I don't know, I'm a multimedia designer, and I joined School of Thought to learn a lot more and grow in my field and learn a lot more skills. I think, yeah.
Okay. Nice to meet you. Who's next? Hey, Megan.
Hi,
David.
everyone.
Hi, David.
Okay, my name is David. I'm a graphic designer. And yeah, I joined the group because I wanted to educate myself more about many things around my field.
All right, then.
Sharp.
Nice to meet you. Who's next? I think Gary is next. Hey, Gary. I think you have to unmute your mic before you can talk.
Henry, you can unmute first.
You have to unmute first.
Henry, you're still on mute.
We can't hear you. You're still on mute.
So you see just here at the bottom of your screen. Can you see my screen? Oh, can you see my screen? So here at the bottom, you'll see the microphone, and you just can switch it. You can switch it on and off in order to mute or unmute. Henry, did you see the mute button at the bottom? Okay. Who else is left? Jabu, have you got? Introduce yourself. You can unmute and just introduce yourself.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
I'm Jabile, and I'm a multimedia designer. I joined School of Thought so I can learn more about design, and yeah, just to learn different things. Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Jabli.
Okay, cool. Nadine, are you here? Have we gone?
Yeah, I think Biggie's mic still didn't work.
Oh,
But he can hear us, right? I think maybe he could just type a message, and then we could go ahead.
okay, cool. Yeah, you can also type in the chat function if you having problem with your mic. I'm going to put my mic off now. Mudia, over to you. You can introduce.
All right then. Hi everyone. I'm Mudia Imasoe, or you could also call me David. I'm a product designer from Nigeria. I also happen to teach design, hence my reason for being here. I've been into product design for a little under 3 years professionally, but I've been doing it at the side, but scientific as profession about 3 years ago. So my plan is, I enjoy the fact that a great percentage of you are conversant to what design is, have experience with design. But today's class is going to be centered around how design can be a problem-solving tool. So I'm just going to share my screen, and then we could dig into it. Nice. It's taking a few minutes. Okay, cool. Sharing now, and let's get to it. All right. So like I said, I'm a product designer, and what's product design? What do I do? Basically, a typical day for me is sitting in front of my computer, obviously, but it begins with either freelance or from work, but it begins with the client, right? Client comes and says, hey, I have XYZ idea. I want it developed, I want it designed, and this is my budget, this is my timeline, blah, blah, blah. But before we get that far, I begin by asking a few key questions, which is, what problem are you trying to solve, right? Because, I mean, one of the main things for me is design is problem solving. If there's any takeaway from this class, it should be that line, that sentence, design is problem solving. So I begin by asking, what problem are you trying to solve? I begin by, I want to know more about your users. I begin by, want to know particular constraints you feel these users may have or you may have as the client, right? And once we've covered all that, which we'll go into a little bit in depth in this class, once I've covered all that, then I begin my work, which is talking to users first, and then prototyping solutions, and then also have the part of my work where I have to always communicate with developers or other stakeholders involved in building a product. So product development and design. So what is design? So this is my definition of design, right? But I want to, I like the fact that there are designers in the house. So I think I would love to hear from you guys on your definition of design. So starting from Samantha, so what is your definition of design? You've been into multimedia for a bit. So from your field, what's your definition of design?
So from my side of it, the stuff I design is more content, so like videos and yeah. It's actually integrated everywhere, and you can, I don't know how to explain it, but that's my explanation. That's
All right then. All right then. What about Jubilee? Megan? Megan?
Yeah, my definition of design. Wow. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like basically making stuff look pretty and appealing to the eye.
Okay, pretty
Yeah.
good. Okay, pretty good. Nandine. That's Tando, right? No, that's not Tando. Nandine, yeah. Yeah, Nandine.
Yeah. So design would be, I suppose, to show the look and function of what you're presenting, whether it's a product, whether it's a site, video content. It's just basically your image representation of the communication you want to bring across to your user or buyer.
All right, cool. All right. We're going to take one more and then we'll jump into it. Tando, is Tando still here?
I'm still here.
Okay, cool.
So
yeah.
I don't have a definition of design, but because I deal with words, I would say design is the color of words or the sound of words or the movement of words.
That's pretty cool. I actually like that definition. What design is for a writer.
Awesome. Yeah, so it just brings it to life. So, yeah.
All right then. Awesome. Cool. So, I mean, this is one of my definitions, right? I mean, I think I have different definitions for different moods on different days, right? But the core one is designing solving problems. And I like what someone said about the look and function, right? Because believe it or not, form follows function in design. And when we get in depth into maybe products or software, we'll see that we can design in such a way to suggest to the user how things function. But right, design is around in everything we see. There's really no wrong answer for design. I mean, if you're into writing, words can be designed. If you're into town planning, that is design, right? You design the way people will live their lives. Services are designed. I mean, there's sound design, there's graphic design, which we're all concerned with. There is process. People design processes to be more efficient, right? So, for instance, I'm working on a product that's doing inventory, and I mean, the bulk of the work is not designing the UI. It's basically designing the process and talking with devs about what is possible and what isn't. Talking with the client about, okay, what are the constraints you have in the warehouse? What are the assumptions the core users of this application will use? So how do we design a better process? Because they have a process, but they want a better process designed. So yeah, that's what design is. So you don't need to be creative in the sense of the word to become a designer, right? I start with functionality before moving into aesthetics, because I mean, everything can be learned. I was not born with an artistic skill, right? I picked up books, picked up stuff, I started learning how design works, because whatever you see out there, yeah, there are geniuses in every field, in which they're like, oh, this just comes naturally to them, right? But it's also possible to learn a skill. So first, another thing to take away is that you can actually learn design properly. You can actually learn to be good, to skill up. I mean, David is a educator, so I'm sure that's something he's familiar with, also teaching people and letting them know that, oh, you don't have to be born with a creative bone to be a designer. You have to just know principles and also understand where to apply them, which mostly starts with studying and then actually just going out there into the field to create stuff. So what's product development? This is where we get into it. Product development refers to all the stages involved in bringing a product from concept or idea through market release and beyond, incorporate a product's entire journey. So basically what this is saying is we're starting from a concept to the end product. Because while you also want to please the users, you also need to please the client, right? The client is coming with the idea not because they want to just pass money around, but because they have an idea which they believe will be able to generate revenue, right? I mean, there's a business side of things, which is why I try to advise designers also understand the business side of things in whatever they are doing. Because if you don't understand the business side of things, you will be passionately carried away with the user and then forsake the client, forgetting that for a product to be considered well designed, it has to meet both needs, that of the client and that of the user. Am I talking too fast? Are we following so far? Guys?
Yes,
Yes,
following.
sir. Yes, sir.
So any questions so far?
No.
No.
No
Okay.
question.
Cool. So how do we start? We start by identifying a market need, right? And then conceptualizing and designing the products. Then you have a product roadmap, an MVP, release MVP to users, and then iterate. So market need. Let's take let's start with this. Like, we are in a total global lockdown, right? But we still need to be able to, let's say, buy and sell and move things around. But we want to reduce how much we move around ourselves or how much we go out, right? So, because since a friend the other day, this is one of the best times for logistics company who have their acts together to thrive, right? So that's a market need. People still need to transport stuff from point A to point B, right? People still need to, people still need to eat pizza, so it needs to be delivered. People still need to make bags or make stuff and sell to other people. And you're like, no, what's the most efficient way for us to do this? Okay, let's be the delivery service. There are a lot of delivery service out there. What do we want to do different? And you guys come together, have your brainstorming session, right? And you can start with really low fidelity prototype just to mimic what should happen, right? So you start by conceptualizing and then designing the products. Then you build a roadmap and say, okay, this is what we want to get to in X number of time. This is what we want to cover. This is how the plan to scale. And then you start by developing an MVP. Now, let me give you an example of an MVP. I had a friend who wanted to do deliveries a while back. He tried that for a while. And there was no technical know-how at that point in time to build an app, right? But what people care about is they can call you to come and pick stuff and have it delivered somewhere. And I was like, you know what? Let's just build something really minimal. And then how the WhatsApp API works. And what we did was just created a single page that had a heading. I think it was pick for me, and then you click on the button, and then it just opens a WhatsApp account. So all we did was people go to the website, click, and then it's taken into a particular WhatsApp account dedicated to receiving orders, right? And then you just tell them, oh, I'm at point A, this is what I have, and I want to deliver to point B. And the person responds, just their calculation on their end. I respond and say, okay, I'll be coming over in X number of time, and this is the amount. And then you agree, right? Isn't that faster than saying, oh, you have to wait for 3 months to get an app done, consume Google Map APIs, and the rest? You just design an MVP without having to do a lot of stuff. Do you understand? Are we following?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So that's one way of getting stuff done, right? It's not just about, oh, you want to show your design powers, but you want to be able to also think in a business sense and think about what is the best way to test an idea, what is the best way to see how users react. So from that MVP, you can start saying, okay, this is what user expects. So for example, if every request already had something like extra to it, right? Saying apart from picking maybe from point A to point B, they always have like extra stuff they want. You cannot realize that, okay, when you finally get to design your product, like a separate application for it, you should always have, like, let's say a field, for instance, right? For special requests, and maybe you can include a field to that. So doing that basically means you've created an MVP, you've released users, you're testing, you're getting feedback, and this data will inform whatever kind of design you hope to do in the future, right? Now, designing the products. Product design is about creating products that meet the needs of the users through business strategy, data analysis, user experience design, user research, user interface design, motion design, and prototypes. It's all about solving users' problems and design thinking, right? Which is part of that process. It's about solving users' problems with design thinking about the process. So let's quickly get into design thinking for a bit. Design thinking is one of the standard ways out there to solve problems and create products. Not just create products, I mean solve problems in general. Design thinking is getting applied to a lot of fields in the country, in the world right now. And it all starts with it's non-linear, right? Which you will see in every book you pick up. It all starts with empathy. And you empathize by actually integrating yourself with the users, right? So there is the empathy stage where you actually integrate with the users, know what's going on, carry out a form of research, just immerse yourself in the problem. And then there is the I think it's ideation, empathy. No, then you find out what the problem is, right? Definition, you define the problem. So empathy, and then you define. So you define the problem. Definition is pretty crucial because if you miss that, you might end up designing the wrong thing, right? So if you've ever heard of, okay, let me give you an example from something around here. So someone comes to you and says, "Oh, I don't have a job," and you're like, "Oh, why don't you have a job?" And person says, "Oh, because I never finished. Because well, I'm unemployed, right? I don't have the skills." I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? And the person talks about, oh, you better have to do X, Y, Z, and X, Y, Z is like a skill you have to actually go to study for in the university, for example, right? And like, okay, why don't you have this? I'm like, oh, I never got into the university. I want to just get into university, and then you realize the secondary education the person had was poor, right? And now, if you are going to solve the problem for jobs, your questioning and your finding out the root cause problem will not be saying, oh, you know what, he doesn't have a job. Let me talk to my contact and then find him something to get him busy. It's more about, oh, this person has this particular problem. And then you realize, and after the year, you realize about 60% of the population of where he comes from for that same problem. So what's the problem? Problem is poor education, right? So how do you design solutions to give them proper and better education in that environment? So let me see the message. Okay, cool. How do you design to have a proper environment for that people, learning environment, and then you iterate, you build that solution. Oh, hold on, let me share my screen. Let me do that again. And then you iterate, you build out solutions, and then you actually get into problem solving for that person. It could be something around finance, for instance, right? You want to build a, so my screen share is still loading. You want to build a solution and say, okay, this solution should be for the unbanked, right? How do you get these people from where they are being unbanked into the platform? How do you create financial inclusion? You don't say, oh, they're unbanked. That's not the root problem. There are problems attached to that you need to solve for. So, for instance, the issue of unbanked could be as simple as from where I come from, right? We have something called a BVN. For some reason, I can't share my screen. It's still loading. We have something called a. Okay, we'll try this out. Sure. Cool. Can you see my screen now? Can you guys see my screen? Okay, cool. So we have something a bank verification number, right? And I mean, not everyone can get that. We want to be able to do stuff like, oh, we don't need to have that constraint for people to carry out transactions because one way or the other, people see carry out transactions that bank accounts, right? So an interesting way I saw someone solve this problem is design thinking, right? Was basically going around and talking to people, and I was like, okay, what is the problem exactly? The person says, oh, this is what I do. I'm actually low income, right? My money is made daily. I have a small shop where I sell stuff. But I have a daughter in which is about 1,000 kilometers away, but in the same country. And I want to be able to send money to her. I want to be able to also save money for my family and maybe send money to her for emergencies. But I mean, I can't go to the bank to open an account. I can't go through the banking process. I'm not educated enough to go through the banking process, right? Then you realize the banking process has its own complexity for people of that class. So this person actually did his research, spoke to a lot of people who had similar problems, and he realized, you know what, the problem these people have is going to the bank, right? But these people save money, these people exchange cash. And what did he do? He got agents, right? And adopted a model used there, a model used by these people. So it's something called like Asusu, right? The Asusu model is simple. Petty traders sell, let's say they sell 5,000 worth of goods daily, right? And I mean, by the time they are closing, by the time they're closing, banks will be closed. By the time they are closing their shops, bank will be closed. So they have these guys who collect money for them. They're like thrift collectors, they say. They have a whole saving plan. They're like, you know what? Every day come to my shop and collect about 3,000 naira, right? And I'm saving it with you. And they already have this trust factor with these people. So you come in, the guys come in, collect the money, write the names down, and that's basically it. When anytime you need money, I can just ask, oh, how much do I have with you? And then the guys let them know. And while this sounds, oh, I know what if the guy is like, he took that into consideration and decided to go a step further. So what did he do? He has things that look like POS machines, right? Obviously, these people don't have cards. But when people give him money, he records it with the machine, and that syncs to their own central database. So right now, you can always track how much people have with you, right? And the key primary thing he used to identify them was the name and phone number. I mean, it's pretty hard for a trader not to have a phone or a SIM card. So at least that's one constraint they didn't have. Everyone has a phone number. And the next thing he did was have people all over the country, right? So your daughter, the man's daughter 1,000 miles away needs cash from her dad. Dad doesn't have a bank account. What does he do? He calls any of the thrift collectors and says, oh, I want to send about 5,000 naira to this person there, my daughter. And I'm like, okay, let's initiate the transaction. Those ones bring out their own machines and say, how much do you want to send 5,000? And then they give the man a particular PIN, right? He then secretly sends this PIN as a text message to his daughter or finds someone to send it to his daughter. And then she can meet up anyone in the country, any of the agents in the country, present the PIN and then collect her money. Now, this is how someone was able to solve the issue of transferring money from people who do not have bank accounts. All he had to do was apply design thinking, talk to people who are experiencing the products, who are experiencing the problem, look at their constraints, both educational constraints and their own financial constraints and their technological constraints, and then build around that. So while most of the time we feel, oh, because we're doing product design, it has to be fancy, it has to be beautiful. When you apply design thinking, you know how to properly design a product, and you will realize that most times, or some of the times, you don't need to go in a fully visual spectrum. You are actually just solving purpose problems using design thinking. So any problem? Any question so far? Question?
Not from my side, no.
Okay. All right, could someone give me a quick recap so far on what design thinking is based on what I've said? Oh, and obviously after you ideate, after you identify the problem, you come up with ideas, and then you prototype those ideas, and then you test. I'll share a resource to design thinking later by IDF. They have free resources that you can read and study that more in-depthly. But is there any question on design thinking, or would anyone like to recount the understanding so far? So if you don't have a question, that means you understand what I've said so far.
So I can summarize design thinking if no one's going to answer.
I don't think you should summarize, because I know you understand it a lot. So I want one of the students to summarize.
Okay, I'll wait.
All right, Nadine. Okay.
I want to hear Sharewave's definition.
Now, it wasn't just for me to reply. The core of the session is for you guys.
I think somebody else should also reply, because I'm also
Okay, I can reply.
quite an old bat in this industry.
I didn't hear you.
I can reply. I think
Okay.
what you were just talking about is that design thinking is a process that we use to give us a clear path on how to solve a problem faced by different users in different scenarios. So whether it's banking, it's cell phones, but it's not about the problem, but it's really looking deeper within lifestyles, behaviors, and using a process to be able to solve those problems and iterate on the way, prototype on the way.
Cool. Yeah. That's a fairly good understanding. All right, so moving on. So part of what I do also is user research or user experience design. And then I'm looking to, that is something you cover in the first two phases of design thinking, right? I mean, it's even continuous, because while most of the time we talk about, oh, you have to do user research for designing a product, you also need to do user research when a product is live. Give me a minute. It's basically called testing, right? You get data from, basically like feedback. So you design something, users are using it, you're drawing data from it, and you're basically actively doing research, seeing how you can better improve the product. Okay. So user research. User research is conducted so as to, oh, someone asked a question on motion design. We're not getting into that, but I mean, it's basically in the word itself, motion design, right? If you install Telegram, for instance, you see how motion design has been embedded into the onboarding process. So motion design is a form of design also. It's something that would also come in when you're designing products, if you're going to go with a purely digital solution. User research is conducted so as to understand users' characteristics, aims, and behaviors towards achieving their aims or their purposes, right? The aim is to produce designs that improve their working practices and lives. User research also involves the continuous evaluation of the impact of design on the users. Not only do you do design and development phase, but after the long-term use. So that's what I mentioned initially. When you design something, you're not just doing your user research before you release your product, right? What is the impact of your design in the lives of people? So for example, what is the impact of, let's say, a product like Facebook, right? The lives of people. Now, I know anytime Facebook is mentioned, people start looking at all the negative connotations of Facebook and the rest, but let's not get into that. It was last year, and I have a mentor who travels a lot, and our houses are close, so like most evenings I'm always in this house. And I was with the daughter and wife and one other family relation the other day, that was last year. And then he called and we're both walking, right? And then I saw him having a conversation with his daughter on the phone. She's like 4 or 5. And then, I mean, there's so much you can ask a child, like how was the day? Maybe talk about school for a bit. But I noticed something, while they were discussing, right? They had this AR game where they swallow burgers and other things that are just simply on the screen. And the father and daughter were actually playing that game together virtually, right? And I was like, this could be Facebook meeting one of their promises, which is connecting people, right? No matter where you are. And I saw it from that angle, like, yes, he's not around at the moment, but he's able to form bonds with his daughter. That's an impact of design. That's an impact that can be measured. And you can say, okay, this is how the design of this platform has affected the life of this family. And despite the dad not like being at home all the time, he see able to communicate with his daughter, is still able to forge a bond with the family. And that's a good impact of design. Obviously, designs also sadly have negative impacts. That's more for an ethics class, but as a designer, it is your responsibility to create products that influence the world positively and try to minimize any negative risk that may happen. User experience design is the process design teams use to create products that provide meaningful and relevant experiences to users. This involves design of the entire process of acquiring and integrating and getting integrated into the product, including aspects of branding, designing, usability, and function. So, I mean, user experience basically talks about the experience, right? What kind of experience do you have using product? What kind of experience do you, how your needs met? Do you feel like things are being done seamlessly? And then you can also look into heuristics, like, what I've designed, is it intuitive to be used? What kind of emotion does he invoke in the users? Those are the things to consider when actually applying your UX knowledge to your designs. And then user interface design, which is what I spend 60 to 70% of my time doing, right? The process of making interfaces in software or computerized devices with a focus on looks and style. And obviously, you also have to make it functional. Designers aim to create designs users will find easy to use and pleasurable. UI design typically refers to graphical user interfaces, but also includes others such as voice-controlled ones. So when people say UI, a lot, they always just believe it is screens, right? It goes beyond that. I mean, the Google Home has a user interface. You converse with it, right? And those things are also designed. I was in a seminar a few months ago, and it was basically like, he was talking about the UX of AI, mostly chatbots, right? And he covered how context is not being designed into stuff like Alexa and Google Home, and how as a designer you can leverage on that to create better interfaces for users. So that's a summary of what we've said so far. Just to remember, the key to producing well-designed products starts with understanding the basic foundations of the product and building on that. Identifying the problem you're designing for, carry out user research, that's qualitative and quantitative, we'll talk about that, so as to better understand the root cause of the problem from the experts, as the problem affects. Create personas based on this research, and then use this person as point of reference with creating, implementing your designs. I'm going to cover personas in a bit. So far, so good. Any questions? Am I too fast? Am I too slow? Do I need to go over something? Guys?
Pace is good for me. Anybody else?
It's good for me as well, thank you.
All right, awesome. So let's get into the other phase, right? What's quantitative and what's qualitative? Quantitative research is in the word quantity. I mean, this is where a bit of the statistics you learned in high school may come into play, right? But it's basically looking at, what data points do I want to find out? So most times people do quantitative or qualitative, vice versa. But personally start with qualitative, right? So for me, I do qualitative and I do my user interviews. So most of the things you do in qualitative is user interviews. You could do like contextual inquiries. You could send out maybe survey forms that are open-ended, that have open-ended questions, because you just want to understand what people think, how people see a particular problem about solving those issues, right? So for example, let's say we want to solve for an ongoing challenge in Africa. where we're designing for to teach kids the value of money, right? So I mean, we'll start out by just asking parents how they approach the subject of money, how old their kids are. We never need that information, but like, you have little kids, yes, how do you approach the subject of money? When your child asks for stuff, like, do you get it immediately? What is the process for you making your child understand the value of that stuff, right? I mean, you just have conversations, see how people respond to those questions, how they maybe not actually tell them the idea, but basically see how so far without digital tools they have been teaching their kids the value of money, right? And then you cannot create surveys based on that. Okay, how much do you spend monthly on, let's say, stuff for the kids outside the basics, which is like maybe food, stuff for school. How much screen time do you allow your kids have? How often do you buy gifts? You understand? Like, you can start asking questions that you can look at from a statistical point of view. I mean, that's just one example, but I feel it's always better to use the numbers to justify whatever hypothesis you've come up with so far, right? So that's basically it. You can always do a lot of in-depth study and different quantitative styles, but why quantitative works is because you don't just go after creating case studies saying, oh, you spoke to only 5 people, so your data is on 5 people. If you're designing a bank app used by 10 to 20 billion people, you don't just talk to 5 people, right? You don't do a survey on 5 people. You do a survey of different clusters of maybe a few hundreds or thousands, and then you cannot look at that from a statistical point of view and say, okay, this is the data, and from the result of this data is going to drive my design, because your design itself is data-driven, and you're working with pure facts and not just assumptions that are not verified. All right. So here, qualitative versus quantitative research. Quantitative and qualitative research are complementary methods that you can combine in your surveys to get results that are both wide-reaching and deep. Quantitative data gets you the numbers to prove the broad general points of your research. Qualitative data brings you the details and depth to understand their full implications. So why do you combine both? From lead hypothesis, you validate your hypothesis, you find general answers, and then you incorporate the human elements. No good product design ignores the humans, which is why we always insist on talking to your users. And this is one of the best methods out there to do that, combining these methods. And now, when you've done qualitative or quantitative research and all the cluster stuff, one thing you're going to create called personas, right? So let me see if I can remember an example I gave before. Oh, let's just dig into it. Personas are fictional characters which you can create based on your research in order to represent the different user types that might use your service, product, site, or brand in a similar way. Creative personas help you understand your users' needs, experiences, behavior, and goals. Now, the thing about research and data is you always have different clusters, right? You always have different personas. You'll have a persona type A, B, and C, right? It's not up to you to ask yourself, what persona am I designing for? One. So maybe if you want to design for all, which one has a higher ranking or hierarchy, so you can see how you can create solutions for this persona, right? So how do you create a persona? You start simply define the story, what the story is about, the main character, person's attitudes, motivation, goals, pain points, right? And you create a scenario, define where, and how the story of the persona takes place. The scenario is narrative that describes how the persona behaves as a sequence of events. Then the end goal of the persona defines what the persona wants or needs to fulfill. The goal is the motivation of why the persona is taking action. When the goal is reached, the scenario ends. Pretty straightforward, right? You basically, like I said, you need to have done research before you can create personas. So let's look at an example of a persona. Now, I mean, you are creating something for creating an application that has to do with studying, right? Reading, and you have done your research. You want to see how you want to create a persona for this person. So let's look at Nina. Demographic: she's 25. She lives in Brazil. She's a software engineer. She's a QA at a game company, and she lives with her boyfriend. So what are the constraints or she has? Like for tech, obviously none. She's not a social networking person. Mildly like messaging once in a while. She plays games, obviously. She works in a gaming company, and then she does a lot of online shopping. So what are her goals? Discovering new books and authors to read, finding unique stories, cataloging book collections. Frustration: keeping track of different series, forgetting a book launch date, finding space for more books. Reading habits: she reads fast, never lends books, likes hardcover and box collections, pre-order books to get them first, reads ebooks but prefers physical copies, always finishes a book, loves binge reading and rereading, right? So for instance, if we're going to create a solution for this person, right, we're not going to just have a complete focus on, oh, let's create another ebook reader app that you can download books and read. Obviously, you've seen that this person loves hard copy, right? Yes, I mean, it won't hurt to have the digital version of the book that she's currently reading. But so let's give a scenario. What if we create something that she can see the book? So, for example, American Gods, which is a pretty good book actually. American Gods, and she reads it, right? She sees it there and she says, oh, I mean, this author looks pretty cool. Now, she can order for the hard copy, right? And it's added to her orders, and then she gets the book is at home. She's reading through it. And then over the next couple of months, she reads a ton of books, but orders through this platform. Now, two things happen. She also has the ability to have the soft copies of the ebook versions on the app, and then she can keep track of the list of books she has read and purchased with that same app. So while we are having a digital reading list where you can say, oh, you can easily catalog stuff, and then you also have the books physically. And that is a solution that meets the need of this person. If you're just going to simply design a Kobo books, for instance, which I think is still purely digital, or you just download ebooks only, you're not meeting her need. But she wants to be able to download books, order for books, and then track what she has read, right? Discovering and also discovering new books. So imagine the app also just tells her, oh, a new book by Neil Gaiman is out. And she's like, you know what, American Gods is pretty good. So let's see what the new book's about. The app obviously reminds her of that, the service reminds her of that, and then maybe a cool mailing list that can maybe show her, oh, you know what, your year in review of books you've read so far, the kind of genres you like, and maybe helping her discover new genres of books. All right, so that's one persona, and you only get this by the time you're done with search. I mean, there's something I designed last year that has to do with books also. I mean, for my research, we saw the kind of books people liked, and so we were able to inform the client on the kind of books to get, right? Because they had a particular target audience. We saw how many books people read concurrently digitally. We also saw that people we surveyed actually loved having soft copy, but wanted the option of being able to buy hard copies. So we added that also to the design. And it's better than just waking up and saying, you know what, let's design a new ebook reader. You need to know who you are designing for. And this next one is one of my second personas. This is from IDF. It is for, I think it's on for Spotify. So let's look at this. Rebecca. Rebecca is a casual audiophile. She is 26. She's a front-end dev, has a bachelor degree, single, location Mountain View. Like, so you try to give your persona a life, right? I mean, most people would skip this, but it's better when you give that persona some kind of constraints, real life scenario, and that way you can actually realize that you are designing for a human and not just some generic person out there. So online locations, work on mobile, she's on a computer, MacBook Pro, internet usage, 8 to 9 hours a day. So she's a tech whiz, she does a lot of music streaming, and she's a casual listener, right? So music is an essential to Rebecca's life. She's listening to tunes mostly every second of her life, partly while working. Obstacles she faces: too busy to explore new music and artists she might like. Streaming consumes a lot of data. How will Rebecca interact with Spotify? Questions she would ask: how do I keep updated on new releases by artists I follow? How do I learn of new artists that I haven't heard of? Can I listen to music in a data efficient manner? How would I listen to both my MacBook, both my MacBook and my iPhone? Now, this is me personally. Personally, I love using Spotify when I'm working because it helps me basically switch, right? So I don't want to think about changing the songs. I have like maybe a particular genre I like, but there are new artists in that genre I don't even want to discover. So I just either do my daily music for the day, or I just pick a genre and then just play through, right? But my really favorite aspect of Spotify is how I can play music on my laptop, and then I'm leaving. I pick up my phone, right? And I just switch the Bluetooth of my headset to my phone, and then the song basically just switches from the Spotify on my laptop down to my headset through my phone. Like it continues from where I stopped, so there's that continuity, and it's a really cool feature. So Rebecca's situation, she has goals and motivations. Listen to great music to keep her productive at work, relax and unwind at the end of the day with music. Superior music quality for full enjoyment of tracks. If you've ever listened to a low bitrate sound, you realize the blessings that come with listening to quality music. Expand the circle of artists she listens to, and then maybe she can search based on keywords and genres she likes. Rebecca's story. So give your personalized story. It really helps. Music is a big part of my life. I like to think that I always have a background music running in each scene of my life. I love working while listening to music. Somehow it gives me a lot of focus on my tasks. I regularly talk to my coworkers about music and singers, and that's what we like to talk about over lunch. We're constantly looking for new artists to inspire us and to expand our music library. But lately it seems a little tough to do that. Everything seems to have a filter bubble effect. I'll keep listening to the same genres and artists. I really enjoy finding new artists that match my subjective taste. And most of the times I get those from my close friends. I wish there's a way to find more music and artists that have to rely on the serendipity of life. So that Rebecca story can be gotten from having conversations with people doing interviews, right? You could see people's complaints, you could take people's words and things they say, and they can build a story around that. So, for example, if we look at people who travel, for instance, right, you could catalog people into a cluster of they like traveling with just their hand carry-on, right? And it could be for various reasons. Now, it could be for people like to travel their carry-on because maybe one, they're business travelers. Two, they never like carrying stuff. It could be three, like in the case of my mom one time, where her luggage got missing, and then it was just like a shit storm. And the person is like, you know what, if I'm just traveling, just take something that I can always carry and monitor. You understand? So that there are different scenarios and there are different reasons why you could cluster users into that particular box and then create a story around that and then create personas out of them. Any question? So before you write a simple persona, these are the things you look at. Begin with hard facts, outline interests and values, write a typical day, technological capacity or exposure, and then write their future goals. So that's not a wrap, but like let's take a breather and discuss. So guys, let's talk. And for those who have designed products before, how do you go about creating personas? What are the challenges you have faced creating personas? How have you applied any of the things we're talking about so far to your work?
Becky, are you able to answer that question?
Hello, anyone there?
I think that Peggy has the most experience with research.
Okay.
She as a maybe she can.
Hi.
Okay. Hi, Peggy.
Hi. When come you please repeat the question. Talking about challenges, right?
Mhm.
On getting
Yeah.
okay. I think the biggest challenges that you're facing when you are trying to collect user research is getting the right people for to able to for your objective. So that is the most challenging, getting the right. So when because you are looking for the information, so finding people in the places in which you will be able to get the best and accurate information to be able to build your personas for whatever objective your project requires. I think that's the most challenging thing. But I think you at that moment you have to reach out to your network. You have to reach out to people around you who might fit a certain criteria so that you can get the best out of for your research. I mean, for the product that you're designing, rather. But there are many challenges there. It's logistical problems. It's people not being, people being reluctant to talk to you, particularly for sensitive issues like if you're doing research for banking and monetary, and you're trying to find out how to build systems. That's also you have to find different ways and iterate as you're collecting the research on what the best way to ask questions in your interview guides. What's the best way to get people comfortable around you when you are trying to solicit that type of information. So many scenarios, I think that's where this the creative mind and comes in, where you have to pivot very quickly, and how you if you're seeing a bit of resistance when you are collecting user research.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Thanks for that. I mean, it's you're right. It's a really big problem when you have to talk to people. So I remember speaking to the example I gave for um, teaching your child the value of money. Right? It's one of the it's actually a project itself, and then I told my students there back in Nigeria that okay, I want them to do like interviews with parents and all of that, right? And like give me feedback of the constraints they have. And believe it or not, I mean, once you teach your kids about money, it sounds like a no-brainer, right? But families are very reluctant to talk about money. And this was a big problem they faced, right? It also in a way boils down to how you ask the question. And some people ask the question starting with the money question. There is no warm up. There's no there's no you're not being tactful, right? You just make it seem like you don't have to know about their finances, and instead of actually coming from a empathetic approach, I feel the way you ask your question, the way you phrase your question, also goes a long way into how much people would want to answer you. Are people willing to participate or probably reluctant to participate? Another way, you just let people know beforehand that hey, I'm doing research on this, and this is what it's going to be about. If you're okay having conversations around money, right, then let's schedule a meeting. If you're not, it's pretty cool. So like there are different approaches, and then there are also interview. There are basically tips and tricks to interviews. I think I have one that I got, but I'll see if it's copyrighted or not. But basically, there are basically tips and tricks to asking questions and making the person you're interviewing really comfortable to answer those questions. So Namza has a question: is it okay, best practice, to not create an imaginary person and instead pick someone who you actually know in real life and describe them in your persona? I'm talking in terms of edge cases and individual peculiar habits. So yes, I agree with this. It's actually pretty okay, right? Especially when you talk about edge cases, there are always edge cases when creating a project. You may even want to use an edge case as your persona so that you'll be able to cover ground for them and then for every other person. While you can use someone who you actually know, most times it's good practice to just, for the sake of privacy, change the name. But yeah, nothing beats a real user who has a real problem. But you also have to be careful. You have to look at the percentage of that edge case, right? And also be sure that if you are solving for this edge case, you are solving for every other person. You understand? So yeah, it's pretty okay. It should be if you have to, and if you have other data points that you feel like, okay, you know what, they're taken care of. But if your edge case, I'm picking a persona, creates problems for every other person you're designing for, I wouldn't advise you go with that. All right, so Chesley says you have to start off with assumptive personas and then validate or invalidate and then through the process once you get feedback from real people. You have to design your well-thought-out interview guide. That's where empathy plays a big role. Yeah, Peggy is right. So yeah, I mean, there are a lot of sorry, this I want to say something. There are a lot of trying to remember what I was about to say. Oh yes, there are a lot of tips and tricks, a lot of documents and guides, right, on how to create an interview. So in fact, we have something called like a soft planning document, right, where you look at the questions and then you maybe review, reward them, and then you even do practice. So one advice is before you go out to the field and meet your core users, right, practice someone you know you're comfortable with. You can actually like, maybe bring friends together, people at home, and these questions, like ask them, right? Because the fact that something sounds like a straightforward question in your head doesn't mean that I think you go out in the field and ask it to make you feel comfortable. So you have to test your process first before you go out there. Any other question? Any other question?
Nothing from me right now.
Okay. Let's see. Namzo, do you have any other question?
No, no other question from my end.
All right, awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right, so that covers the really pretty high level introduction to that. We'll just do a few, look at a few principles of visuals, and then we'll be done, and then we can have we can have like a more lengthy conversation. But summary is this, right? There's no.
Sorry, something just came to mind. Sorry for interrupting.
Okay, go on.
You mentioned resources for this, and I was wondering if you'll be sharing them as well.
Yes, I will.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So yeah, you're welcome. So product design itself, right? Then before you get to the visual part, it's the real work is actually the bulk of the work, not the real work, because I mean it's all work. The bulk of the work is done in this first phase. Because if you create a beautiful product that looks aesthetically appealing and doesn't meet the need of the users, then you've ended up wasting your time, the client's time, and that's just a lot of money going down the drain, right? So while we have touched on some stuff, it's also your best interest, like go back and I'll share stuff like I said and read. So you have to understand when to apply what process, you understand how to properly apply design thinking, how to properly talk to clients, how to properly talk to people doing interviews, and then you're not learning stuff maybe like affinity mapping and all that stuff. It's basically, like I said, this is high level, but until you get in depth, you see how you apply those things. You just need to know that, okay, these things need to be done, right? And then one process for me is, I can read about stuff, read about it to a good extent, and wait for when I want to apply it. And when you want to apply it, you can start going in depth and say, okay, you know what? I need to do interviews. I've heard about interviews. Now let me study how to create really good interview questions, how to create good survey questions, how to go into the field and see, you know, how to get the best out of my time there, right? So one key trick is know what you want to get out of your session, right? It helps guide your session. So like you know what, I'm going to spend the next 3-4 hours interviewing people. What do I want to get out of this interview? What kind of data would I like to get? Yes, the other data like you didn't think about that will always come up, right? But focus on what you want to get from this session so that you can make the best out of that time. All right. So down to now time for visuals basically, and then it's a wrap. Visual hierarchy and its importance. Visual hierarchy is the organization of visual items into different levels of relative importance. This is basic graphic design stuff, right? Through basic design principles, we emphasize one element over another, so more important tools look more important. Visual hierarchies create centers of interest on your page, large app, or design products, communicate additional meaning through convention and repetition, highlight actions you want your users and viewers to take, and establish patterns of movement and flow. So, basic design principles, contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity allow us to add relative meaning to information. Basically, the basic principles of design let you manipulate visual hierarchy. So let's look at contrast, for example, right? On this page, I mean, now let's not even look at this also from the point of view of or from a business point of view, right? One key action an e-commerce store wants you to take is to purchase, buy now, right? So while let's say we label them, right? Well, the Nike Air Force One text looks is the biggest here, and there may be price. If we label this as 1, 2, 3, the next thing, the highest biggest visual hierarchy is the buy now, right? It's already a call to action that tells you yes, you can purchase, and then add to cart is actually secondary, right? They want you to add more items to cart, but I mean, it's better conversion for them if you just purchase at the moment. And then visual hierarchy contrast plays a role here, where you can see that okay, you have updated your cart with one item, right? Same thing here for contrast, where it highlights around the area, the view of the shoe you are on, right? So putting like the visual principles together, you can actually create a good experience for the users. The user knows, oh, I'm on the page for shoes. This is the buy now button. This signifies the particular aspects of the shoe I'm looking at. Basically, stuff like that. Just basically applying principles of visual design. You have started creating a good experience, a functional experience for the user. Repetition. Repetition attaches meaning to new elements. Think blue underlined links. So anytime you're on a web page, blue basically means is clickable, right? You have seen them before. Next time you see them, you bring with you information about them. Repetition instantly communicates that elements at the same level in the hierarchy. So pretty straightforward. Alignment. Alignment creates order, allows you to quickly connect elements across the page, and helps you define start and end points. Now, once an alignment is broken, it helps you call attention to that element, right? A single element that breaks the established alignment calls attention to itself and its importance. Now, breaking an alignment can help you, it's basically like you manipulating a particular principle to create visual hierarchy, because the first thing you saw was not aligned, it was the unaligned value. Proximity, basic standard stuff. Proximity groups elements within a hierarchy and creates new sub-hierarchies. Your home page or mobile app may have 3 offers of different products or services. Each may have a heading, a descriptive paragraph, an image, and a link to more information. But the most common one we know is basically this, a form field, where you have the label and then the placeholder and then the input field. So, I mean, these are all we are covering. I'll drop links to visual principles that we can read and study. Thankfully, none of us have experience with design, so the visuals not their problems, hopefully. And what we should focus on first off is on creating products for people by actually talking to these people. This is optional. I did this, but then again, I'm still thinking about it, right? I'll share this slide with us, and then if we want to actually apply what we have learned so far and also add principle of visual design, then we can do that. So thanks for your time, guys, and I'm open to questions right now around your field and conversations.
Questions?
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Great. So I want to understand, like, because what you're talking about is you're talking about research, design, and product design, particularly using like your interface design and things like that. So what would be the best way to transition from traditional graphic design to more product-based digital interface design?
All right. So I feel if you're a graphic designer, right, you already have a good percentage of your visuals on lockdown, right? So your visuals will not be a problem. Obviously, you need to adjust a few things, but I think the key thing you should take to consideration when transitioning is understanding design thinking, right, and how to solve for users. Now you've known how to create designs to maybe for advertisement, for branding, for creating brand strategy, creating consistency across a particular brand, which is very good, which you also bring into your product design career, right? But I think the core thing you need to understand is understanding users first. So design thinking and understanding users and understanding the things we cover such as interviews and all is really important. So once you have that, once you can actually take out time to learn that skill, understanding people, understanding users, designing for users, you can always now brush up any other part of your visual design skills that needs to adapt to product design for software. So for example, you need to realize that for mobile screens, a 48px button is better, right? Because I mean, it gives more further for people to actually tap the button, right? You need to realize that, okay, this is the screen size you're designing for, this is how to use your space efficiently, this is how to use grids on mobile, you understand? Like those are the things, those are the little adjustments you make along the line. But like I said, your visuals is on lockdown if you already have graphic experience. You just need to learn how to solve user problems using design. So you need to learn how to interact better with people. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And what's the just to piggyback on that question, what's the best entry level software to use?
Oh. You know what I was saying already, Figma. So yeah,
Okay.
Figma is the so I say Figma, right? Not just because like I'm an ambassador for Figma, but because that was what helped me. I've been doing design for a bit, right? Like I said initially, I've been doing design for a few years, but professionally for just a little close to 3 years, right? But before then, I've used design tools, I've used Adobe, I've used Corel, but having a tool on the web that had little, for like when I told my friend, they had like little buttons, right? They just had like 5 tools at the top and just had a panel on the right. It means I was thinking more of solving problems than making visual decisions and picking what tool was for what. I wasn't picking, oh, how do I cover a rectangle? No, it was just, these are the tools already, right?
Okay.
I was able to finish the introduction how to use the tool in like an hour. So imagine an hour video on Figma's YouTube on how to just use the tool. So I was done using the tool and I was just applying my understanding of design at that point into creating stuff for people. It was not more about, I was focusing more on talking to users, focusing more on understanding the business principles. So when I started design professionally, I was more into fintech. So design for finance, right? So I'll talk to developers. What are the constraints? Oh, what are the regulations around finance? Okay, how do users understand? So it was more a conversation of people and not about tools, right? And if I ever had to improve my design skills, I could not always watch a Figma tutorial or design tutorial. I could look at someone working on Sketch and try to implement stuff Figma. So your visuals take constant practice to build. The way Figma is built, it's your imagination is basically your limit. I mean, people illustrate on Figma, and people illustrate on Photoshop too, right? But you see the build on Figma and then the web too. So one key thing for Figma for me was how I was able to not need to carry my laptop everywhere, right? So that means I was never really thinking about my tools. So for example, when I went home to see my parents in December, I left my core laptop in my house right? And then I traveled out to tell my parents, and I had to do something. So I just picked up my mom's laptop, logged into Figma. All my files were there. I was able to quickly make edits and push to the client. So it's a tool that lets you forget about designing in terms of the number of tools I need to install, but let's see focus on actually creating value for people. So I think it's a good tool for you to learn.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. If you have any other question here.
So to follow on from that, when are we having a Figma lesson?
Soon. Soon.
Okay, cool. So I have to actually end our session soon because we've got to drop off for another call. But I just want to say thank you so much. And if you can just forward the whatever links and resources you want to, or you can.
Yeah, I'll upload them to the classroom, but I'll also send the link to you so you can share with everyone. I'll put everything in a folder, and a document, a Google document, so you can look at links. But something I want to show everyone. Let me share my screen quickly. Is this window? So Pluralsight at the moment is giving free 1 month to all their courses. So I think it would be pretty good if you create an account and then you get into looking at their tools here. So basically it's about learning how to use tools, right? You could put maybe design and art or illustration and then just learn, like this quarantine period, learn something new, learn how to use a tool, and then you're good to go. So yeah, I'll also send this link also. And that's it for now. So thanks for your time, guys. I really appreciate you guys taking our time for this class today. I hope to have another one soon. We'll have a Figma design class soon enough. And also on Figma Africa, we have meetups and stuff and AMA sessions. So we're having virtual meetups where people can learn how to use tools, AMA sessions where you can ask more in-depth questions around branding, around user research, for instance. About a month ago, we had someone from Google UX have an AMA session with us. And Chester will follow the details on how you can actually be part of the community also, because apart from just learning and reading about design, community helps you grow. And Figma Africa has been played a huge part in my growth also. So thank you guys for coming.
Thank you so much, Mudia. You put in so much into this presentation. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
So much.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Oh, before we leave, can everybody please turn the camera so that we can have one nice picture? I want to take a screenshot.
Oh, cool. All right then.
Woohoo! They have been in the house for too long.
Chelsea, your camera is not on.
Oh, okay, fine. I'll put mine on. Let me see. How do I get this so that we can see all the squares together? Full screen. Cool. That's a nice one. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.